The villain's mask slipped, revealing motivations rooted in fear, greed, and a twisted sense of protection, protecting themselves, their legacy, and a past they were desperate to keep buried. The man could see it all now, the calculated moves, the alliances forged in secrecy, and the chilling lengths they would go to keep the truth from surfacing. But what made the confrontation truly unforgettable wasn't just the revelation itself, but the emotional reckoning that followed. The man, torn between rage and a deep, aching sorrow, confronted the betrayal not just of trust, but of the very bonds that once held his world together. Words became weapons, memories cut deeper than knives, and through it all, a raw humanity shone through flaws, regrets, and desperate hopes laid bare in the flickering shadows of the room. Just when it seemed the story had reached its peak, and the man had wrestled the truth from the jaws of deception, an unexpected twist shattered the fragile resolution like glass. The final piece of evidence, the one clue that tied everything together, wasn't hidden in a dusty trunk or a forgotten photo album, but in the heart of someone the man never thought to question, himself. A memory, repressed and twisted by trauma and time, resurfaced with startling clarity, revealing that the man was not just a victim or seeker of truth, but a key player in the conspiracy's origins. The revelation flipped the entire narrative, forcing both him and the audience to reconsider everything that had come before. Was he truly the innocent caught in a sinister plot, or had he been part of the very story he had been chasing all along? The boundaries between hero and villain blurred, and the weight of this knowledge pressed heavily on his shoulders, leaving the outcome uncertain and the future hanging by a thread. As the tension snapped like a live wire, the man stood at a crossroads where every choice carried unimaginable consequences. The room, charged with emotion and raw intensity, held its breath as the final battle, one not of fists but of wills, played out. The struggle was as much internal as external, a fight to reclaim identity, trust, and the fragile hope for redemption amidst a sea of broken promises. The story's climax was not just a moment of victory or defeat, but a profound reckoning with the shadows of the past and the uncertain light of the future. For the viewers watching this unfold, the climax delivers everything you've been waiting for: the secrets, the betrayals, the heart-stopping twists, and then shatters expectations with a revelation so profound it changes the entire game. The mystery isn't just solved, it's transformed, leaving you questioning the nature of truth, memory, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. Stay with this story until the very end, because the last twist is a game-changer that no one saw coming, and it will leave you thinking long after the screen goes dark. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, the man found himself standing alone amid the ruins of everything he once thought was certain. The truth finally out, but its weight heavier than he had ever imagined. The tangled web of secrets, betrayals, and hidden pasts had unraveled, exposing the raw and fragile core beneath years of silence and deception. Though many questions had found their answers about his family, the vanished sister, the cryptic messages, and the people who had manipulated the story from the shadows, there remained a sense of unresolved tension, like a breath held too long before release. The man had uncovered the conspiracy and faced down the darkest parts of his own history, but in doing so, he realized that some mysteries don't end with a neat conclusion. They linger, echoing in the spaces between memory and truth, forever shaping the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The photographs from the trunk, once just relics of a forgotten childhood, now felt like silent witnesses to a life marked by resilience and loss. The people who had betrayed him, those who had protected their secrets at all costs, were part of a complex tapestry where right and wrong blurred in shades of grey. The friend who had deceived him, the hidden alliances, the unexpected twists, they all served as painful reminders that trust is fragile and truth is often a moving target. Yet, despite the pain and uncertainty, the man found a measure of peace, not in knowing every answer, but in the courage it took to face the unknown and keep moving forward. His journey had transformed him, leaving scars but also a newfound strength to rebuild, to redefine his story on his own terms. But as the camera fades on this chapter of the man's life, a subtle, haunting question remains, something in the shadows just beyond the frame, a whisper of secrets still unrevealed. The final moments hint at a deeper layer beneath the surface, a truth so profound that it promises the story isn't truly over. It's a reminder that the past can never be fully escaped, that some truths hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to resurface. For those watching, the story leaves an indelible mark, a call to question the stories we inherit, the memories we trust, and the shadows we choose to face or ignore. It's a journey about more than just a man and his trunk of childhood photos. It's a reflection on identity, trust, and the often blurry line between victim and survivor. As the credits roll and the screen darkens, you're left not just with answers but with the stirring of new questions, an invitation to look closer at the hidden layers of your own life and the stories that shape us all. The mystery lingers because real life rarely offers perfect closure. Sometimes, it's the unresolved moments that stay with us the longest, pushing us to seek, to understand, and to grow. This isn't just the end of a story, it's the beginning of a deeper conversation about truth, memory, and the courage it takes to face both. And as you carry this story with you, remember that sometimes, the most powerful revelations are the ones that leave us wondering what comes next. And now, as you sit with all these pieces swirling around you, the only certainty is that the next revelation could come from anywhere, and no one is quite who they seem. The mystery is deepening, and the shadows are closing in. What happens next could change everything, and the truth, whatever it is still waiting to be uncovered. The villain's mask slipped, revealing motivations rooted in fear, greed, and a twisted sense of protection, protecting themselves, their legacy, and a past they were desperate to keep buried. The man could see it all now, the calculated moves, the alliances forged in secrecy, and the chilling lengths they would go to keep the truth from surfacing. But what made the confrontation truly unforgettable wasn't just the revelation itself, but the emotional reckoning that followed. The man, torn between rage and a deep, aching sorrow, confronted the betrayal not just of trust, but of the very bonds that once held his world together. Words became weapons, memories cut deeper than knives, and through it all, a raw humanity shone through flaws, regrets, and desperate hopes laid bare in the flickering shadows of the room. Just when it seemed the story had reached its peak, and the man had wrestled the truth from the jaws of deception, an unexpected twist shattered the fragile resolution like glass. The final piece of evidence, the one clue that tied everything together, wasn't hidden in a dusty trunk or a forgotten photo album, but in the heart of someone the man never thought to question, himself. A memory, repressed and twisted by trauma and time, resurfaced with startling clarity, revealing that the man was not just a victim or seeker of truth, but a key player in the conspiracy's origins. The revelation flipped the entire narrative, forcing both him and the audience to reconsider everything that had come before. Was he truly the innocent caught in a sinister plot, or had he been part of the very story he had been chasing all along? The boundaries between hero and villain blurred, and the weight of this knowledge pressed heavily on his shoulders, leaving the outcome uncertain and the future hanging by a thread. As the tension snapped like a live wire, the man stood at a crossroads where every choice carried unimaginable consequences. The room, charged with emotion and raw intensity, held its breath as the final battle, one not of fists but of wills, played out. The struggle was as much internal as external, a fight to reclaim identity, trust, and the fragile hope for redemption amidst a sea of broken promises. The story's climax was not just a moment of victory or defeat, but a profound reckoning with the shadows of the past and the uncertain light of the future. For the viewers watching this unfold, the climax delivers everything you've been waiting for: the secrets, the betrayals, the heart-stopping twists, and then shatters expectations with a revelation so profound it changes the entire game. The mystery isn't just solved, it's transformed, leaving you questioning the nature of truth, memory, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. Stay with this story until the very end, because the last twist is a game-changer that no one saw coming, and it will leave you thinking long after the screen goes dark. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, the man found himself standing alone amid the ruins of everything he once thought was certain. The truth finally out, but its weight heavier than he had ever imagined. The tangled web of secrets, betrayals, and hidden pasts had unraveled, exposing the raw and fragile core beneath years of silence and deception. Though many questions had found their answers about his family, the vanished sister, the cryptic messages, and the people who had manipulated the story from the shadows, there remained a sense of unresolved tension, like a breath held too long before release. The man had uncovered the conspiracy and faced down the darkest parts of his own history, but in doing so, he realized that some mysteries don't end with a neat conclusion. They linger, echoing in the spaces between memory and truth, forever shaping the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The photographs from the trunk, once just relics of a forgotten childhood, now felt like silent witnesses to a life marked by resilience and loss. The people who had betrayed him, those who had protected their secrets at all costs, were part of a complex tapestry where right and wrong blurred in shades of grey. The friend who had deceived him, the hidden alliances, the unexpected twists, they all served as painful reminders that trust is fragile and truth is often a moving target. Yet, despite the pain and uncertainty, the man found a measure of peace, not in knowing every answer, but in the courage it took to face the unknown and keep moving forward. His journey had transformed him, leaving scars but also a newfound strength to rebuild, to redefine his story on his own terms. But as the camera fades on this chapter of the man's life, a subtle, haunting question remains, something in the shadows just beyond the frame, a whisper of secrets still unrevealed. The final moments hint at a deeper layer beneath the surface, a truth so profound that it promises the story isn't truly over. It's a reminder that the past can never be fully escaped, that some truths hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to resurface. For those watching, the story leaves an indelible mark, a call to question the stories we inherit, the memories we trust, and the shadows we choose to face or ignore. It's a journey about more than just a man and his trunk of childhood photos. It's a reflection on identity, trust, and the often blurry line between victim and survivor. As the credits roll and the screen darkens, you're left not just with answers but with the stirring of new questions, an invitation to look closer at the hidden layers of your own life and the stories that shape us all. The mystery lingers because real life rarely offers perfect closure. Sometimes, it's the unresolved moments that stay with us the longest, pushing us to seek, to understand, and to grow. This isn't just the end of a story, it's the beginning of a deeper conversation about truth, memory, and the courage it takes to face both. And as you carry this story with you, remember that sometimes, the most powerful revelations are the ones that leave us wondering what comes next. And now, as you sit with all these pieces swirling around you, the only certainty is that the next revelation could come from anywhere, and no one is quite who they seem. The mystery is deepening, and the shadows are closing in. What happens next could change everything, and the truth, whatever it is still waiting to be uncovered. Now, picture that very drawing leading to a real-life location, sparking a police investigation. Sounds like something out of a mystery novel, right? But this isn't fiction, it's a story that blurs the lines between imagination and reality, between art and truth. In a remarkable turn of events, an 11-year-old girl's innocent drawing became the key to unraveling a real-life mystery. Her sketch, seemingly just a child's doodle, turned out to be a detailed depiction of a location that had been the subject of a police investigation. This unexpected connection between a child's imagination and real-world events raises intriguing questions about perception, reality, and the hidden depths of seemingly simple actions. As we delve into this story, we'll explore how a child's innocent creativity can intersect with the serious world of law enforcement. We'll uncover how a drawing, meant to be a mere expression of imagination, became a pivotal clue in a real-life investigation. Through this narrative, we aim to understand the profound impact that even the smallest details can have in the grand scheme of things. But this isn't just about a drawing, it's about how we perceive the world around us. It's about recognizing that sometimes, the answers to complex questions lie in the most unexpected places. It's about understanding that reality can sometimes mirror fiction in the most surprising ways. So, stay with us as we unravel this fascinating tale, exploring the intersection of art, reality, and the unexpected ways in which they can converge. By the end of this story, you might just find yourself looking at the world and at children's drawings in a whole new light. As the days passed, the small town of Maplewood buzzed with whispers and speculation. The drawing that had ignited the investigation was no longer just a piece of paper, it had become a symbol of the unknown, a bridge between the innocence of childhood and the complexities of adult mysteries. The girl's name was Emily, a quiet 11-year-old with a penchant for sketching the world around her. Her drawings were often overlooked, pinned haphazardly on the walls of her room, but this one was different. It depicted a secluded cabin deep within the woods, a place Emily had never visited, yet her depiction was eerily accurate. Oh my tales! The police, initially skeptical, were drawn into the mystery when they discovered that the cabin in Emily's drawing matched the description of a location linked to a series of unsolved crimes. The cabin, located miles away from the nearest neighbor, had been the site of several disappearances over the years, each case marked by a chilling lack of evidence and a growing sense of dread among the townsfolk. The authorities had long suspected the cabin's involvement but had never been able to pinpoint its exact location. Emily's drawing provided the breakthrough they needed. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered unsettling connections. The cabin's owner, a reclusive man named Mr. Blackwood, had a history of erratic behavior and had been linked to several incidents over the years. Neighbors reported strange noises emanating from the cabin at odd hours, and some claimed to have seen figures moving behind its curtained windows. Yet, no one had ever dared to approach the cabin, and Mr. Blackwood had always managed to keep to himself. Further complicating matters was the discovery of a series of cryptic messages carved into the trees surrounding the cabin. The messages, written in an archaic script, seemed to tell a story of forbidden rituals and ancient rites. Experts were brought in to decipher the carvings, but their interpretations only added to the confusion. Some believed they were remnants of a long-lost cult, while others thought they were the ramblings of a madman. Wikipedia. The town's residents were divided. Some viewed Emily as a hero, a young girl whose innocent drawing had uncovered a dark secret. Others were more skeptical, questioning whether the cabin was truly connected to the disappearances or if it was merely a coincidence. Rumors swirled about Emily's family, with some suggesting that they had known more than they let on. The local sheriff, a childhood friend of Emily's father, found himself torn between his duty and his personal connections. As the investigation progressed, new leads emerged. A local historian uncovered records of a similar cabin, built centuries ago, that had been the site of numerous unexplained events. The historian's findings hinted at a pattern, suggesting that the cabin's location had been passed down through generations, each owner adding to its dark legacy. The more the investigators uncovered, the more questions arose. Was Emily's drawing a mere coincidence, or had she tapped into something far older and more sinister? The tension in Maplewood reached its peak when Emily went missing. One evening, she simply vanished, leaving behind only her sketchbook and a trail of unsettling drawings. The town was thrown into chaos, with residents fearing that the cabin's curse had claimed another victim. The police redoubled their efforts, scouring the woods and questioning everyone who might have information. But as days turned into weeks, there was still no sign of Emily. Then, a breakthrough came. A hiker, lost in the woods, stumbled upon a hidden path that led directly to the cabin. Following the path, the authorities discovered a concealed entrance beneath the cabin, leading to a network of tunnels. Inside, they found evidence of the missing persons, each marked by the same cryptic symbols found on the trees. The tunnels seemed to stretch endlessly, and at their heart lay a chamber filled with artifacts and remnants of rituals. Police magazine. +2. Time. +2. Honey. +2. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, upon which rested a peculiar object. It was a mirror, its surface etched with the same archaic script found in the carvings. As the investigators approached, the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. One by one, they gazed into the mirror, only to be confronted with visions of their deepest fears and regrets. It was then that they realized, the cabin was not just a physical location, but a manifestation of the collective darkness of the town. The discovery of the tunnels and the mirror provided the final piece of the puzzle. Emily's drawing had not only led to the cabin but had also uncovered the town's hidden history. The cabin, with its cryptic messages and hidden passages, had been a focal point for events long buried in the town's past. Emily had unknowingly tapped into this history, bringing to light secrets that many had hoped would remain forgotten. As the town of Maplewood began to heal, Emily was found, disoriented but unharmed. She had wandered into the woods, drawn by an inexplicable force, and had stumbled upon the hidden path. Her journey had led her to the heart of the mystery, and in doing so, she had uncovered truths that had been hidden for generations. The story of Emily and her drawing serves as a reminder that sometimes, the answers to our greatest mysteries lie in the most unexpected places. A simple sketch, an innocent act of creativity, can unravel the threads of the past and reveal truths that change everything. In the end, it was Emily's drawing that turned out to be real, leading to a location that had been the subject of investigation for years. And in doing so, she brought light to a darkness that had long been concealed. As Emily's drawing continued to captivate the town of Maplewood, the investigation into the mysterious cabin deepened, revealing layers of complexity that no one had anticipated. The authorities, once confident that they were on the verge of a breakthrough, now found themselves entangled in a web of uncertainty and intrigue. The cabin, once thought to be a mere relic of the past, seemed to hold secrets that defied explanation. One of the most perplexing developments was the sudden disappearance of a crucial piece of evidence, a series of photographs taken by a local journalist who had ventured into the cabin weeks before Emily's drawing had surfaced. These photographs, which depicted strange symbols and artifacts within the cabin, had been intended to shed light on its mysterious history. However, when investigators attempted to retrieve them from the journalist's office, they found the entire file had vanished without a trace. No one could explain how the photographs had disappeared, and the journalist, who had been cooperative throughout the investigation, claimed to have no knowledge of their whereabouts. This unexplained loss of evidence sent shockwaves through the investigation. Some speculated that the photographs had been stolen to prevent the public from learning the truth about the cabin. Others believed that the journalist had been involved in a cover-up, perhaps out of fear or complicity. The authorities were left grappling with the possibility that someone within their own ranks might be obstructing the investigation. Amidst this turmoil, a new lead emerged. A former resident of Maplewood, who had recently returned to the town after many years, claimed to have information about the cabin's history. The individual, who had been a child when the cabin was last occupied, recounted eerie tales of strange occurrences and unsettling figures associated with the cabin. According to this person, the cabin had once been a gathering place for a secretive group that practiced rituals in the dead of night. These rituals, the individual suggested, were linked to the unexplained disappearances that had plagued the town decades earlier. However, when investigators attempted to verify these claims, they encountered resistance. Neighbors of the former resident reported that the individual had been acting erratically, speaking in riddles and displaying signs of paranoia. Some even suggested that the person might be suffering from delusions, casting doubt on the credibility of the information provided. The authorities were left questioning whether the individual's account was a genuine revelation or the product of a troubled mind. Adding to the complexity was the involvement of a local historian who had taken a keen interest in the cabin's past. The historian, known for their extensive research into the town's history, had uncovered documents that hinted at a long-forgotten chapter of Maplewood's past. These documents suggested that the cabin had been built upon land that had once been the site of a tragic event, a fire that had claimed the lives of several individuals under mysterious circumstances. The historian believed that the cabin's construction was an attempt to erase the painful memory of the fire and its victims. Yet, when the historian attempted to present these findings to the authorities, they were met with skepticism. Some officials dismissed the documents as fabrications, while others questioned the historian's motives. The historian, feeling marginalized and ignored, began to withdraw from the investigation, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. In the midst of these developments, Emily's own behavior began to change. Once a quiet and introspective child, she became increasingly withdrawn, spending hours alone in her room, sketching furiously in her notebook. Her parents, concerned for her well-being, attempted to intervene, but Emily insisted that she was fine, that she was merely trying to understand the visions that had been haunting her dreams. She spoke of shadows moving in the corners of her vision, of whispers calling her name in the dead of night. Her drawings, once innocent depictions of everyday scenes, now featured cryptic symbols and distorted figures. Her parents sought the help of a child psychologist, who suggested that Emily might be experiencing stress related to the ongoing investigation. The psychologist recommended that Emily take a break from the situation, to distance herself from the events that had unfolded. But Emily refused, adamant that she needed to continue her work, that she was the key to unraveling the mystery. As the investigation progressed, the line between reality and imagination began to blur. The authorities found themselves chasing shadows, unable to discern truth from illusion. The cabin, once a focal point of their efforts, now seemed to recede into the background, overshadowed by the mounting uncertainties and the growing sense of dread that permeated the town. The residents of Maplewood, once united in their quest for answers, now found themselves divided. Some believed that the cabin held the key to the town's dark past, while others insisted that it was merely a relic of bygone days, its significance exaggerated by fear and superstition. The debate raged on, with no consensus in sight. And then, just when it seemed that the investigation had reached an impasse, a new piece of evidence surfaced. A local man, who had been absent from the town for several years, returned and claimed to have information about the cabin's origins. According to this individual, the cabin had been constructed by a group of outsiders who had come to Maplewood under the guise of settlers. These individuals, the man alleged, had been involved in secretive activities, including the practice of forbidden rites. The authorities were skeptical of the man's claims, but the timing of his return and the specificity of his information raised eyebrows. Was this man a harbinger of truth, or was he another in a long line of unreliable sources? The investigation was once again at a crossroads, with more questions than answers. As the town of Maplewood grappled with these revelations, Emily's condition worsened. Her drawings became more erratic, her behavior more erratic. Just as the town of Maplewood struggled to understand Emily's unraveling mental state and the strange reappearance of a man with cryptic knowledge about the cabin's origins, a chilling new development jolted the investigation into an even darker and more tangled direction. Emily's older cousin, Rachel, a college student who had only recently returned home for summer break, became unexpectedly entangled in the mystery. Rachel, who had been keeping her distance from the chaos surrounding Emily's story, dismissed it all as small-town hysteria until the night she found a sketch slipped under her bedroom door. It was crude and childlike, scrawled in charcoal, but unmistakably similar in style and detail to the drawing Emily had made. The sketch depicted not the original cabin, but a new structure, an old water tower long abandoned on the outskirts of town, a place Rachel vaguely remembered from childhood as being off-limits, surrounded by rusted fencing and overgrown brush. The image rattled Rachel. She hadn't told anyone she was back in town yet, not even Emily, who was still under supervision following her psychological evaluation. No one outside her immediate family knew she had returned, but the fact that someone had not only known but had left her this drawing in the dead of night sparked immediate dread. Worse still, when Rachel showed the drawing to Emily the following day, Emily's face went pale. Without saying a word, she pointed to a series of marks near the base of the water tower on the sketch, symbols nearly identical to those found on the trees surrounding the cabin. Emily whispered just one word: they moved. Suddenly, the investigation's focus widened beyond the cabin, the suggestion that the strange events weren't confined to one location, that whatever force or group had operated from the cabin had now relocated, reignited panic in Maplewood. Rachel, once skeptical, found herself drawn into the same obsessive need to uncover the truth that had overtaken Emily. She began digging into town archives, old newspapers, and local legends, and what she uncovered chilled her to the core. There had been whispers, decades ago, of a secretive network of sites used by a forgotten order, each site marked by the same symbols, each associated with strange disappearances and unexplained sightings. As Rachel pushed deeper, she started to suspect that someone within the community was actively covering up these connections. Her suspicions fell on Mr. Hargrove, the town's mild-mannered librarian and local history buff, who had been surprisingly resistant to her questions. On the surface, he had always seemed like a harmless recluse, but there were inconsistencies in his stories, and too many lost or misfiled documents in his archives. When Rachel returned to the library one afternoon and found the entire local history section sealed off with a handwritten sign reading "under repair," her instincts told her something was off. Later that night, she received an anonymous text message containing just a single line: "Stop digging, or you'll end up like her." The message sent a surge of fear through Rachel, not just because of its threat, but because of its timing. No one knew about her independent research. Not even her parents. The only person she had spoken to about the water tower theory was Emily, and Emily had been under watch. This meant someone was watching her closely enough to know what she was doing, and when she checked her devices for spyware, changed her passwords, and even removed the battery from her phone at night. But the sense of being monitored didn't go away. The fear turned into paranoia, and yet, the need for answers kept her going. At the same time, the police received an anonymous tip about a hidden room beneath the water tower. They brought cadaver dogs and a forensics team, but when they arrived, the site was completely cleared. No markings, no entryways, no indication that anything had ever been there. The only thing they found was an old photograph half buried near the base of the tower, water-damaged and faded, but still legible. It showed a group of people standing outside the original cabin, people who had long been presumed dead or missing. In the corner of the photo, nearly obscured by a shadow, stood someone who looked eerily like Mr. Hargrove, only much younger. When the police questioned him, Hargrove claimed to have no memory of the photo and insisted it was a case of mistaken identity, but Rachel wasn't convinced. She began to piece together that this wasn't just about the cabin, or even the water tower, it was about something bigger, something older than anyone in town had realized. Whatever force had been behind the cabin, behind the symbols, behind the disappearances, hadn't just survived, it had adapted, evolved, and embedded itself within the very fabric of Maplewood. That realization came crashing down on Rachel when she received a second drawing, delivered this time not by hand, but slipped into her notebook during a campus tour she was leading for new students. The drawing showed an aerial view, an interconnected web of locations, all marked with the same looping symbol she'd seen in Emily's sketches, but what chilled her most wasn't the locations themselves, it was the center of the web. Clearly circled and drawn in darker ink was her family's home. Before she could make sense of it, the fire alarm in the building suddenly blared, forcing an evacuation, and in the confusion, her bag with the drawing inside disappeared. Now with everything spiraling, Rachel no longer knew who to trust. Emily had started speaking in a strange, poetic cadence, mimicking the phrases carved into the trees and the tunnel walls. Mr. Hargrove had gone silent and was reportedly on medical leave. The police seemed less and less inclined to share information with Rachel, brushing her off whenever she pushed for updates. And that night, while reviewing security footage from the university library where she'd received the map, she spotted a figure placing the drawing in her notebook, someone she thought she could trust. Someone she'd known her entire life. Someone who was supposed to be hundreds of miles away. And just like that, everything she thought she knew about who was helping her and who was working against her crumbled. The moment Rachel realized how deep the shadows stretched around her, the world she thought she knew began to unravel in the most terrifying way imaginable. It wasn't just the drawings or the strange symbols anymore, it was the feeling that someone, or something, was always just behind her, lurking just out of sight. The days that followed the disappearance of the drawing from her bag were filled with a growing sense of dread that no amount of logical thinking could shake. She started noticing odd things, footsteps echoing when she was alone, flickering streetlights outside her bedroom window, and the unmistakable sensation of being watched wherever she went. At first, she brushed it off as paranoia, a consequence of sleepless nights and the pressure of unraveling a mystery that had already taken so much from her family. But then her phone buzzed one night with a message that made her blood run cold. "You're closer than you think. Stop now, or you'll disappear too." No name, no number, just the chilling warning. It was clear whoever sent it wanted her to be terrified, to stop looking, but Rachel knew she couldn't. Not now. But then, before she could even begin to process the threat, a far worse blow came crashing down. Her younger brother, who had been visiting from college and had tried to stay out of the whole investigation, vanished without a trace. One minute he was there, sharing a quiet dinner with their parents, and the next, gone. There was no note, no call, no sign of forced entry or struggle, just an empty room and a family shattered by confusion and fear. Rachel's mind raced, piecing together everything she had learned so far, the strange figures in old photographs, the cryptic drawings, the vanished evidence, and now this. Someone was sending a message, and it was unmistakably clear, no one was safe. The police treated the disappearance as a missing persons case but warned Rachel to be careful with her own investigations. Their words were less comforting and more of a thinly veiled threat. Alone in her room that night, with the weight of the silence pressing down, Rachel found herself drowning in her own thoughts. Was she the reason her brother was gone? Had her digging unearthed something too dangerous? Her chest tightened with every shadow that danced across the walls, every creak in the old house sounding like footsteps drawing closer. The friendly faces she once trusted now felt suspicious, their smiles laced with secrets. The mysterious message lingered in her mind like a dark promise, a reminder that curiosity had consequences. Her phone buzzed again, but this time no message, just static, like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. Panic clawed at her throat, but beneath it, a stubborn flame of determination burned brighter. Rachel knew one thing for certain, she was no longer just a curious bystander. She was part of a story far bigger and darker than she had ever imagined, a story that might cost her everything if she wasn't careful. The symbols, the hidden rooms, the vanished people, they were all connected, and the truth was clawing its way out of the shadows. But who could she trust when the line between friend and foe blurred, and the past reached its cold fingers into her present? The mystery had wrapped itself around her like a noose, tightening with every passing moment, and the only way out was to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. Yet as she stared out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was already waiting for her next move. The question wasn't if she would find the truth, but whether she would live long enough to see it. Just when Rachel felt like she was spiraling into a nightmare with no end in sight, the walls around her began to crumble in a way that shattered every assumption she had made so far. It came unexpectedly, a moment so surreal that even now she struggled to believe it was real. Late one evening, exhausted and emotionally drained, she received a call from someone she never expected to hear from again, Detective Miller, the lead investigator who had been steadily involved since the cabin drawings first surfaced. His voice was low, tense, and almost hesitant, a stark contrast to the confident tone he usually wore like armor. He told her to meet him at the old police station immediately, warning that what he was about to reveal would change everything she thought she knew about the case. When Rachel arrived, Miller handed her an envelope marked confidential. Inside were pages of previously sealed reports and files, some dating back decades, that nobody had ever shared with the public or even the rest of the police department. What she discovered was staggering: maps, photos, and notes that completely contradicted the narrative everyone in Maplewood had believed. The cabin wasn't just a random abandoned structure tied to some secretive cult or forgotten tragedies. Instead, it was a carefully constructed decoy, a smoke screen for something far more sinister hidden beneath the surface of the town itself. What the authorities had been desperately trying to protect wasn't just local history or folklore, it was evidence of a covert government experiment conducted decades ago, something designed to manipulate memories and reality itself. And that's not all. The most shocking revelation came when Miller confessed that several key players in the town, including Mr. Hargrove and even Rachel's own family members, were connected to this operation, knowingly or not. The symbols carved into the trees, the eerie drawings, the disappearances, they were all part of a controlled psychological experiment gone wrong, designed to test human perception and fear. Rachel's drawings, Emily's visions, and the cryptic clues weren't paranormal or supernatural but symptoms of manipulation that had been triggered in the community. Suddenly, the friendly librarian wasn't just a recluse with secrets, he was a custodian of forbidden knowledge, caught in a complicated web of loyalty and guilt. Her brother's disappearance wasn't random either. It was likely an attempt to silence anyone who got too close to uncovering the truth. Miller's confession overturned everything Rachel had fought to piece together. The people she thought she could trust were either pawns or puppeteers in a terrifying game much bigger than a haunted cabin or forgotten rituals. The water tower, the hidden rooms, the drawings, they were all interconnected parts of a sinister project that blurred the lines between reality and illusion, control and freedom. Rachel's mind raced, heart pounding as she realized the true scale of the danger she was in. This was no longer about solving a small-town mystery, it was about exposing a conspiracy that had seeped into the very fabric of Maplewood's identity, one that might destroy everything she loved if left unchecked. As the weight of this revelation settled in, Rachel looked up to find Miller watching her with a conflicted expression. "You're not just fighting the past anymore," he said quietly. "You're fighting for your future and for the truth to survive." The room felt colder, darker, and in that moment, Rachel understood that nothing and no one was as it seemed. The game had changed, and now the stakes were higher than ever before. The moment Rachel absorbed the truth Detective Miller had laid bare, a suffocating storm brewed inside her, dragging her deeper into an impossible web of choices that no one should ever have to face. The people she loved, the family that had been her anchor through every hardship, suddenly became the very source of her torment. Her parents, once symbols of unwavering support, were now shadowed by the knowledge that they had been part of something far darker than she had ever imagined, whether willingly or out of ignorance. The lines between protector and conspirator blurred, and Rachel found herself staring at the fragile fragments of trust she'd built all her life, watching them crack under the weight of secrets. She was forced to confront her mother one cold evening, in the quiet kitchen where so many family memories had been made, and ask the questions that clawed relentlessly at her soul. How much did they know? Had they truly been innocent bystanders, or were they complicit in a truth that could destroy everything? The look in her mother's eyes, a mix of sorrow, fear, and resignation, offered no comfort, only deeper uncertainty. Then came the ultimatum. It arrived not as a message or a warning but in a direct, face-to-face confrontation that shattered any illusions Rachel held about safety or loyalty. One night, as she returned from a long day of piecing together fragmented clues at the local library, she found a note slipped under her door. No signatures, no names, just a stark command: stop now, or lose everything. Her heart pounded as footsteps echoed behind her on the empty street, but when she turned, no one was there. The next day, Miller called her with a chilling proposal. The police could protect her if she agreed to end her investigation, to let the past stay buried. But accepting meant surrendering the truth she'd risked everything to find. Refusing meant going it alone, knowing that every move could be watched, every ally a potential enemy. Rachel's mind was a battlefield, torn between the desperate desire to protect her family and the burning need to expose the full story. Every choice seemed like a trap. She could protect her brother by hiding the truth, but then the question lingered: was silence safety or complicity? Could she forgive those closest to her for their role, or would that betrayal shatter her forever? The paranoia settled deep within her bones, twisting her world into a place where shadows held whispers of betrayal and the smallest misstep could be fatal. Rachel began second-guessing every word, every glance, haunted by the possibility that even her closest friends might be part of the machinery designed to keep the conspiracy alive. Sleepless nights blurred into restless days as she wrestled with the crushing weight of impossible decisions. In the quiet moments alone, Rachel grappled with the emotional storm that churned inside: fear for her family's safety, guilt for dragging them into this nightmare, and an unwavering resolve that refused to be silenced. The truth was no longer just a puzzle to solve, it was a burden to carry, a razor's edge between hope and despair. And as the walls closed in tighter, she realized the haunting truth. In this battle, there might be no winners, only survivors. Yet somehow, despite the darkness pressing down, Rachel knew she had to keep moving forward because the answers, no matter how painful, were the only light left in a town drowning in secrets. The truth that Rachel uncovered didn't just shake her world, it shattered the very foundation of everything she thought she knew about Maplewood and everyone in it. What started as a small-town mystery surrounding an eerie drawing and a forgotten cabin now revealed itself as the tip of a sprawling, deeply entrenched conspiracy that stretched far beyond the borders of their quiet community. It wasn't just the police or a few secretive locals. This was a network that involved powerful figures, people with influence and resources Rachel had never imagined could be part of the story. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about her family or even the town, it was about control, manipulation, and a long, dark history of secrets maintained by an invisible hand. As Rachel raced to piece everything together, the pace of her life shifted into overdrive. Every phone call, every unexpected knock at the door, every shadow lurking just out of sight felt like a countdown. She couldn't trust anyone anymore, not even those she'd thought were allies. The betrayal came when she least expected it. One of her closest friends, someone who had stood by her side through every late-night conversation and shared every fear and hope, revealed a hidden agenda. It was devastating. The friend's cold admission that they had been working for the other side all along, feeding information back to those determined to keep the truth buried, hit Rachel harder than any physical blow. The lines between friend and foe blurred into a chaotic blur of suspicion and heartbreak. In the heated moments that followed, Rachel found herself caught in a whirlwind of confrontation and escape, the weight of the conspiracy pressing down with an almost suffocating intensity. The network was vast, more organized and ruthless than she could have guessed, and the stakes were higher than ever. Every step forward risked exposing not just herself but anyone connected to her. It wasn't just about finding the answers anymore, it was about survival. The danger was no longer theoretical. It was immediate, personal, and relentless. People she had trusted, institutions she had believed in, and places she had considered safe were now battlegrounds in a war she never asked to fight. Amid the chaos, Rachel's determination burned brighter. She knew the clock was ticking and that every moment wasted could mean losing the chance to stop this sinister force from tightening its grip. But the weight of betrayal and the scope of the conspiracy left her questioning if she could ever reclaim the life that had been stolen or if she was destined to be just another lost piece in a puzzle too big to solve. The night stretched on, filled with whispered threats, hurried plans, and a relentless pulse of fear mixed with hope, a fragile hope that, somehow, the truth could still break through the darkness before it was too late. Rachel stood at the edge of the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the place where everything she had uncovered was about to collide in a moment that would change everything. The night was thick with tension, the cold air prickling her skin, and the distant hum of city lights a faint reminder of the world that continued to turn oblivious to the darkness lurking beneath. She clutched the worn envelope Detective Miller had given her, the collection of evidence that exposed the conspiracy's deepest layers and, most importantly, the key to dismantling it. Every step forward was a battle against the fear that had taken root inside her, the fear of facing the mastermind who had pulled the strings, hidden in plain sight for so long. As she slipped through the cracked doorway, the weight of every loss, every betrayal, every whispered warning surged through her veins. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shadows and forgotten machinery, a perfect metaphor for the twisted plot that had been spun around her. The flickering light above barely illuminated the figure waiting at the center, someone she never expected to see again, someone whose presence instantly brought her heart to a frantic beat. It was Miller, but not the Miller she thought she knew. His eyes, once filled with conflicted hope, now gleamed with a cold calculation that sent a shiver down her spine. He wasn't a protector, he was the architect of the entire scheme, the puppeteer who had orchestrated the psychological experiments, the disappearances, and the silence that had gripped Maplewood for decades. The shock was overwhelming, but Rachel forced herself to steady her breath and meet his gaze, knowing this was the moment she had been preparing for. "What you've uncovered," Miller began, voice steady but laced with menace, "is only the surface. The truth is far more dangerous than you realize. This town, these people, they're part of a grand experiment. And you were never supposed to find out." Rachel's hands trembled, but she held the envelope up defiantly. "You think hiding behind secrets and fear will keep you safe? It ends tonight." The confrontation spiraled into a tense psychological battle, words cutting sharper than any blade, each revealing layers of betrayal, guilt, and shattered dreams. Miller's justifications, twisted by power and obsession, clashed with Rachel's raw determination fueled by love and a relentless thirst for justice. The air thickened as their pasts intertwined, exposing not just a conspiracy, but the human cost of silence and control. In a desperate move, Miller lunged toward the hidden control panel that could erase all evidence, but Rachel's quick reflexes stopped him just in time. The struggle was intense, raw, a physical manifestation of everything at stake. In the chaos, Rachel managed to secure the files, the final piece of evidence illuminating the full scope of the operation: illegal surveillance, manipulation of memories, and countless lives ruined in the name of control. But just as she thought the nightmare was ending, the warehouse lights snapped off, plunging them into darkness. A whisper filled the room, an encrypted message on Rachel's phone, revealing a live feed showing another player watching the entire confrontation from somewhere unseen. The conspiracy was bigger than Miller, bigger than Maplewood. Someone else was pulling the strings from the shadows, and the fight was far from over. As the screen flickered, showing a silhouette turning away from the camera with a knowing smile, Rachel realized the final twist wasn't just a revelation, it was a warning. The real enemy was still out there, waiting for the next move. In the days that followed the intense confrontation at the warehouse, Rachel found herself caught between relief and uncertainty, a fragile balance that felt both like a victory and a new beginning shadowed by lingering questions. The evidence she had secured, with Miller's hidden files and the newly uncovered surveillance, ignited a firestorm within the community and beyond. News outlets, investigative journalists, and federal authorities began peeling back layers of deception that had long been buried under silence and fear. Maplewood was no longer just a quiet town, it had become a symbol of a far-reaching struggle between truth and control, a battleground where ordinary people found their lives entangled in extraordinary secrets. Rachel's courage in facing the nightmare head-on inspired others to speak out, to demand accountability, and to reclaim the stories that had been stolen from them. But even as the public reckoning unfolded, Rachel knew that peace was not a destination she could simply arrive at, it was something she had to build day by day, from the fragments left behind. Yet, amid the progress and growing hope, The shadow of the unseen puppeteer, the mysterious figure in the live feed, continued to haunt her thoughts. Who were they? How deep did this web truly stretch? The unanswered questions lingered like a quiet pulse beneath the surface of her new reality, a reminder that the battle for truth was ongoing and that vigilance was the price of freedom. Rachel found herself walking the line between closure and curiosity, understanding that some mysteries might never be fully solved but that the pursuit of truth, no matter how painful, was worth every sacrifice. Her family, scarred but resilient, began healing in small, meaningful ways, learning to trust again while carrying the weight of their past with newfound strength. The bonds forged in fear and betrayal slowly transformed into a foundation for hope and redemption, even as the town itself grappled with the fallout from revelations that would echo for years to come. In the quiet moments, Rachel often found herself staring out at the horizon, the same one that had once seemed so simple and safe now layered with complexity and possibility. The drawings, the symbols, the shadows, they were no longer just signs of fear but markers of a journey she had taken, a journey that challenged everything she thought she knew about reality and herself. And though the scars of deception remained, they were proof of survival, proof that light could break through the darkest places. As the camera pans away from Rachel standing alone beneath a sprawling oak tree, the same tree that had been part of her earliest clues, there is a subtle movement in the distance, a flicker of something watching, waiting. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of unease and wonder, a quiet invitation to question what lies beneath the surface of their own lives and communities. Because sometimes, the greatest mysteries aren't those we solve, but those we carry with us, and in that space between truth and shadow, the story continues.